Good evening, good morning, good afternoon, good whatever it is, wherever you are, whoever you are, and welcome to the show that's all about who we are. This is No Nerd Caliber, the show in which we talk weekly about one particular area of interest that we pick our top X number of things within. This week it is our top three comic book villains. And in fact, it's going to be top three plus an honorable mention, so you'll get top four. So lucky you folks. I'm Rodney Brown. I'm the editor in chief of Nerd Caliber, first person shooter on Facebook as a cosplay photographer, Burley _adopter on Twitter as a tech journalist. And it's kind of, I don't know if you can see it, I'm a pretty small head. I apologize for the glowing Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer zit on my nose, but good for you people to know that in your 60s you can still have bad skin. So, isn't that nice to know?
Mm-hmm.
Joining me tonight is, let's see, we will start with, you can't really see the pirate flag. I was going to go with the guy with the pirate flag, but just the very bottom. Anyway, Byron, if you would introduce yourself.
Hello.
That's the One Piece flag, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, it is. Hello, Nerd Caliber Nation. It is I, Byron McNeil, aka Byron D0, multiple facets of the internet, contributing writer, social media expert, if that's a thing, and occasionally on-camera personality and video creator whenever I feel like making videos for you guys. Aside from that, I do a bunch of artsy-fartsy things on the interwebs. I have a YouTube channel that I have geared towards art commentary, since I like to talk and I like to draw, so put the two together. Yeah. I usually put up 1 to 2 videos a week, depending on what my schedule's like. So if you like to hear, a talented artistic nerd going on and on about things he's passionate about, check out my channel. That's Byron D0, BYRON DZERO, all one word.
Awesome. Check it out, folks. And the man who started our entire inland empire, that's actually the name of a book or something, right? Anyway,
I believe so.
Manny, if you would introduce yourself.
Hello, this is Manny. I'm the founder of Nerd Caliber. All this is my fault. You could blame me and send everything at my email, hatenerdcaliber@something.com.
I'm going to make that right now. I'm going to register the domain something. No, I won't. And then forward it along to your actual email address. Anyway, so No Nerd Caliber, we talk about our top 3 favorite things within a particular fandom. We picked comic book villains this time because on Thursday, our full fat spoiler chat show will be all about the series Loki. And Loki, for whatever he is at various times, anti-hero or whatever you want to call him, he is a villain. As he was described by somebody who will not be named at the episode 6. But Full Fat Spoiler Chat, 8 o'clock Thursday, is a spoiler-filled show. We talk about everything about the topic, in this case Loki. So if you've seen Loki, or if you haven't but you don't mind spoilers, come on in, join us for what's going to be a very exciting chat, I'm sure.
Yes.
But building up to that, let's talk about villains. So we go downwards 3 to 1, and so we're going to start with alphabetically. We're going to start with Byron. So Byron, what is your number 3 villain in comic
All right,
books?
my number 3 villain. He's kind of like Loki in the sense where he toes the line between good and evil. I chose Magneto for my number 3 because he's definitely one of those villains that a lot of people gravitate toward. No pun intended. I am so sorry.
Well, find him magnetic. Let's put it that way. Because what was it? Unus is the gravity one, right?
I thought it was Graviton.
Hmm?
Graviton? Oh no, we think about talk about mutants.
Yeah, mutants. Unus or something like that. Anyway, sorry.
Okay.
Deep cuts.
But he's got a very magnetic personality. that one was for you, Rodney.
Thank you.
he's a very fascinating figure because I kind of get my lore mixed up between the movies and the comics, but wasn't he a Holocaust survivor in the original comic run as well, or is that just the movies?
I thought it was the comics too.
Yeah, it's the comics too.
Okay, yes.
And in fact, that's kind of what brought him and Charles together. Charles was early in on the founding of Israel, and they're both Jewish, so
Yes.
that's how in the comics that's how they share a connection initially first. So, yes.
Yeah. And there have been periods where he's gone, where he made a full face turn as an X-Man. I mean, I don't really count the whole Joseph thing from the '90s because
Yeah, let's not talk about that.
Yeah.
I mean the only positive I can take from that entire period was Trish Tilby's outfit from that from that one storyline where they went and take on the Phalanx, because that's the kind of guy I am.
Yeah, there's a lot from that period that you kind of go,
Yeah.
Yeah, Age Apocalypse Magneto wasn't so bad from
Yes.
the 90s.
Well, yeah, he was the leader of the X-Men at that point because someone had to take the reins after his best friend died.
spoiler for a 30-year-old comic. So.
Wow, 30 years old. Jesus, take the wheel.
Yeah. I still remember. A spoiler alert: Legion goes back in time, try to kill Magneto. He messed up, killed his father, and then made a whole new timeline.
Yep.
It is what it is, though. But I don't like. I'm just going at the risk of repeating myself. He's he's also a pretty shitty father because
Yep.
that definitely puts him like on the villain scale with me, because it's just like I could be a good dad, but I'm going to turn my kids into weapons for my war against the world.
Well, wait, hold on. I thought Magneto didn't know they were his children until much later, after they became part of the Brotherhood.
Well, that's what I mean. Like he could have tried to make things right, but he decided to use them as weapons.
Yeah, I think you're right, Manny. The question is, so he's done that for every one of his children, I believe.
Yes.
Polaris, he knew was his daughter, right? When he first started having her as an evil mutant.
I look back at Polaris. Polaris is a little hazy on his origin, but you might be right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Polaris is one of those ones that I get pretty messed up too because of the cartoons. Because I remember, like, one of my favorite memories of her was with Iceman, but that's another topic for another time.
I will say that the two actors that played Magneto are fantastic. I thought they killed that role.
Yep.
Oh yes, they definitely have. Like they definitely made that role their own. Like I love Fassbender in that apocalypse suit. That was like one of the only good things about that movie.
If I may ask, Byron, what's your favorite story arc or instance of Magneto, either in the comic books or even in the animated series?
Well, I would easily say the Magneto storyline from the 90s cartoon, because he was just such an imposing figure. Like the lead into Magneto being introduced to that series was kind of just like it was hinted at. You saw him with the the dark faced helmet covering up, making it look menacing, and then whenever like the mansion got attacked, you see Charles pick up the watch, and he's like, "My watch has been magnetized." I'm like, "Oh!" And then things just got more and more like, and then like the amount of turmoil he went throughout the series, like even with Asteroid M, which was like his best intent, like the best incarnation of his good intentions, being taken down by someone that just doesn't want to see him do good. And I think that's the part about Magneto that I resonate with the most. Like being part of a marginalized group, I am more than well aware of the external forces that constantly try to bring out the worst in me, even though I'm trying to be better, trying to be noble. There's always going to be someone that wants to poke the bear, and that's what Magneto represents to me as a villain and as a character.
That's a really good summation of his character. I got to think. My favorite has to be the Magneto solo series that was 8 or 10 years ago. Because it's a little bit like a Dark Knight Returns version of Magneto. He's out to try to find out what horrible people are doing to his mutants, and he's in the black and white suit, except in this case, instead of it being white and black, it's black and white, and he's not he's not out to play
recent,
nice.
Right? That was pretty recent, right?
Yeah, like 8 or 10 years ago, I think.
Okay.
Might even been more recent than that, but it wasn't in the last couple of years. It was.
I was gonna say that was. I'm thinking. The last time I remember him in that suit was during the Power of 10 storyline.
I think it was before that, but I don't. Don't quote me on that. Anyway,
Okay.
So Manny,
number
your either favorite Magneto story if you have one, or your number 3.
Well, my favorite Magneto story, real fast, is X-Men #1, the Jim Lee, when Jim Lee was drawing it, when he realized that his personality was being manipulated, so he turned back to his
By the acolytes, right?
Yeah, and
I do remember that one. So I remember my mom buying that comic for me when I was in 5th grade.
yeah, the art is just good. I mean, it was a good story. Like everything about that was great. My number 3 is Ultron. Not the movie version. Movie version, I think, is the worst version of Ultron I've seen.
Yes.
Because the personality did not fit what I've grown used to seeing in the comic books or even in some animated versions of Ultron. It was just too much like trying to be funny and everything. And Ultron's not funny.
Sassy robot.
Ultron's a robot that has no sense of humor, just wants to destroy. Why Ultron? Ultron is one of the few villains that he's just can stand by himself and take out all the Avengers. He's just an amazing villain. Very calculating, very smart, tries to get 2 steps ahead of them all the time. Plus his body is made out of, at least his outer shell is made out of adamantium, making him even much more of a threat. And I do like the Henry Pym, Ultron dynamic, the father versus son thing, son versus father.
Why don't you love me, Daddy?
That trope. Yeah. It's done well in my opinion. If you ask me what's my favorite story arcs, there's 2. Ultron Unlimited by Kurt Busiek and George Perez is an excellent story arc. Also, what the Acts of Vengeance Daredevil issues, where it was just Daredevil versus Ultron. Because when I first heard about that, I was like, how in the world is
Exactly.
he going to take down Ultron? But it works. Very well written. I forgot who wrote that. I'm going to have to look that up again. But those are Ultron's my number 3.
Yeah, I agreed 100%. Ultron is in my mind the ultimate Avengers baddie, more so than Thanos, than almost anybody else. Just a great story.
It's too bad Joss Whedon's an idiot.
Well, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Wasted potential. Too bad.
Yep. The design looked pretty good, and that's the only good thing you can say about the movie Ultron.
Yeah. Oh, and James Spader did a great job with the voice. It's not his fault. It was given bad lines, bad character, but he's
right. Wasted. That's something I've noticed with some of my favorite villains in Marvel cinematic projects. They get and my favorites personally, they just get the shaft. And it's usually some of my favorite actors too, which I will bring up with my honorable mention. But there's him, and then there was Lady Deathstrike in X2.
Yeah. So my number 3 actually ties into this because it just occurred to me. It's too bad Spader did Ultron, because I think the absolute perfect casting for Spader at least as he is now, would be as the MCU's Doctor Octopus.
Ooh, he would have been brilliant.
He would have been brilliant. So that's my number 3. Doc Ock is mostly a Spidey villain. He very rarely branches out into anything else, although he does. But he's also one of those characters that is so, like so many of them that have mentioned so far, except Ultron, is so right on the line of villain and anti-hero.
Absolutely.
He's absolutely a tragic villain. His backstory in the comic is really similar to his backstory in Spider-Man 2. He's a nuclear scientist who invented these manipulating Waldo-type, octopus arms on a harness. There was a radioactive accident. It fused the harness to him. That triggered some sort of either mutation in his brain, or it's been retconned at some point that he might have actually been a mutant, and it just opened up the mutation. That he can control the arms with just his brain, so it's not like in the movies where some sort of nanotech fuses into his spine.
I remember one of my scientist friends years ago getting livid over that fact. It's like, this is science fantasy, not science fiction.
Well, yeah, it's a comic book. No comic book that isn't specifically written to be science fiction is anything other than science fantasy. I mean, it never is.
I think she got bent out of shit because she studies robotics.
Yeah. I mean, you look at Elon Musk's Neuralink, and it's literally what happened to Octavius in the movie, except they're trying to do it for good, controlling robotic arms through neural implants. So, well, yeah, Elon Musk, who knows? Not that I'm arguing with your robotics scientist friend. She obviously knows more than I do. But, he grew up in a terrible family situation with a very abusive father. It's one of those where, but for the grace of God, that could have been Peter. Except that he had loving parents, or at least as much as he knew about them, and certainly loving people who raised him. And the other thing is he is a genius. And one of the best storylines in Spider-Man involving Octopus or Otto Octavius is Superior Spider-Man.
Oh, yes.
Where Peter dies, I guess really dies, but somehow with the technology, his soul, spirit, brain engrams or whatever are actually still in his body, which Octavius's mind is now in. So Doc Ock is in Peter Parker's body, so he pretends to be Parker, and he really does, in every way except morally, become a superior Spider-Man to Peter Parker. His genius is higher, his experience is greater, his reasoning, his rationality, his logic. You watch this and go, this is what Peter Parker really should be as Spider-Man, with Peter Parker's morality behind him. And to give Octavius credit, he tries. He really does try to become the hero that Parker was. And unfortunately just can't. It's just not his personality to ultimately go down that road.
Yeah, and it screws up some of his more popular relationships, like Black Cat.
Oh, it screws up a lot of Parker's relationships, all of them. It gives Otto a new one.
I'm gonna pose the same question that man just posed to me. What is your favorite incarnation of Dr. Octopus?
Oh, the original. For me, I grew up on the original. That's it. That's why I picked that particular image. It's a modernized look at the original concept, as opposed to going with the lady Dr. Octopus from Into the Spider-Verse, which is fantastic. Catherine Hahn wins always. I grew up on the original Doc Ock in the 60s and 70s, and so that's mine.
My favorite I guess, story arc involving Doctor Octopus would be the one. Fantastic Four. My brain says issue 264, but I can't be that accurate. It's been so long since I've read that. But I think you know which one I'm talking about. It's the one where Susan is about to give birth to a second child. There's a lot of complications. So he's trying to get Dr. Octopus to try to find him and have him help out. And the discussion of how they do that and try to convince a supervillain to help out was pretty interesting. And the ending, of course, is very tragic. But I always think of that when it comes to Dr. Octopus. That's the first issue or story I think of.
Yeah.
I will say that probably one of my favorite incarnations of Doc Ock would have to be. It's a tie between the '90s cartoon and Ultimate Spider-Man. '90s because like it was my first introduction to the character and in like any kind of media outside comics, and you got like introduced to him as being initially a father figure to Peter, which made like the realization of who he was to Peter like to be like, all the more devastating. And then Ultimate Spider-Man, he's probably one of the only things that I liked about that show, because like while he was an invalid essentially, he was terrifying.
Yeah.
And Peter McNichol plays him to perfection.
Oh, yeah. That's really wonderful casting.
Yes.
All right, so Byron, number 2.
Yes, number 2. I gotta pull out my list because my memory is shot. Yes, Sinestro. I don't know if you noticed, but I'm a Green Lantern fan.
Nice.
And I got into Green Lantern long after Hal had massacred 99% of the Corps. So I would recall back issues and whatnot just to get an idea of who Sinestro was. But I never I guess because a lot of my introduction to him was Super Friends, I never grabbed onto him right away. But when Green Lantern Rebirth happened, that was when I got to see him as the force of evil that he was. Like he was you understood if you understand anything about dictatorial characters, you understand Sinestro, because he's I'm doing this for the greater good. You need to listen to me because I know what's best. And if you don't, I will fucking kill you.
Yep.
And it's just so fascinating how he coerces his minions in his core to serve under him. And then when then it hurts so bad when Jeff Johns ended his run of Green Lantern, and you see him having to part ways with Hal, and it's just and Hal asked him were we ever friends all that time? And he said, he looked him dead in the eye with the parasite in him, and he says, "That's the tragedy. We were always friends." And you can take that to mean even back in the day they were friends, because he did he was Hal's mentor back in those days, and they have a long storied history.
Yep. And
even going so far as to coerce Larfleeze into keeping Ganthet and his beloved safe. He's you're going to keep this secret or I'm going to kill you. And when he was possessed by Parallax, I believed he could do it.
Now, I think the best thing to come out of the Green Lantern movie is Mark Strong as Sinestro.
Oh yeah,
I was about to say that. Yes, I agree.
I also want to applaud Victor Garber for his voice acting role in First Flight.
Another great voice talent. Yep. Yeah, I've always been a fan of Sinestro. Um, Even though initially I was never a big fan of him because in the early days he defeated Hal by yellow, and
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
always struck me as like the dumbest thing, in
There
the
were a lot of
superhero
dumb
world.
things of Rage, though.
Yeah. Well, I'm that old, so. Um, but yeah, good choice. Good choice.
Yeah, I will say, and like when he got the ultraviolet ring, it put him on a whole other realm of terror for me.
Yeah.
Because you're just like
No.
he went from being he went from being chaotic neutral to just full on lawful neutral evil as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, I haven't read any of the runs of the various color, lantern colors, so I kind of just know about them mostly from reading up on them or cosplay and so on. But I can picture that as being pretty terrifying.
Was like mind control plus lantern powers.
Right. So
Yeah, the Sinestro War, if I remember correctly, that was the story arc. That was one of my favorites for
Great
Sinestro.
storyline.
Yeah, when he had his own corpse, that core. Sorry, I should say. That's I thought that was fantastic.
So, Manny, what would be your number 2?
My number 2 is Doom 2099. I'll try to my best to not talk about Doctor Doom as we know him. Just about about Doom 2099. So for those of you that may not know, 2099 was a series that came out late 80s, early 90s.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They were trying to do this thing about like what would superheroes be like if they were rebooted in the year 2099. And of all those comics that have come out, Spider-Man 2099 is definitely my favorite. Peter David did a great job with that. But my second favorite was Doom 2099. What if Doom somehow, for reasons that no one knows for sure, he appeared in this era as he was, and decided like, okay, let's see if I could conquer the world without any interference from the Fantastic Four, and he does. And I just thought that was just a fun issue. It's been takes before of what if the supervillain took over the world storylines, and I thought this one particularly was interesting because it wasn't just an easy victory. There was complications, and sometimes you have to be
You
careful
had
what
to
you
deal with
wish for.
Alchemax a few times, right?
Yeah, that's yep. And eventually, yeah, he took control of everything, and I thought that storyline was fantastic. That's why I picked Doom 2099 as my second.
I just had to look that up. 1992 was when the 2099 imprint, because it did have its own separate imprint under Marvel.
Yeah.
Yeah,
was launched.
I did remember that.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know if you saw this, but I picked the sort of blue and black with the red eyes costume because the original is way, way over the top. It's kind of Doom meets Mad Max meets 2099.
Yeah.
It's
The spikes.
the spikes.
Oh, the spikes.
So many spikes. So much 90s. All right, so my number 2 is the Clown Prince of Crime.
Good choice.
And the reason I picked him is because he is the ultimate foil for a single superhero character. Every superhero has an arch nemesis or a nemesis, or maybe a few that rise to that level. Spider-Man has a few that are up at that level.
Oh, absolutely.
The Joker is the singular, perfect opposite of Batman. And the reason I particularly like him is because of the fact that I didn't even know this for sure. I thought he was always a joke until the 70s and then the 80s. He started out in the original comics as a psychopath who just happened to really like pulling, sadistic jokes. And it wasn't until the Comics Code got a hold of comics in the 1940s that he turned into the, ludicrous character that he was right through the 50s and 60s He started to change a bit in the 70s. He started to get a little more crazy, a little darker. But it was 86's Dark Knight Returns, where Frank Miller, in an alternate future timeline, turns him into sort of old man killer Joker, which inspired Death in the Family. 1988, the issue in which Jason Todd is killed by the Joker, and that issue turns this character completely around back into a murderous psychopath. And whatever you may think about the after effects of that particular issue or that run, Death in the Family, how it was handled as to literally a 1-900 number call in to decide whether the Joker kills or doesn't kill Jason Todd, which was really terrible. It was a watershed moment in DC Comics that changed how many villains were treated from that point on, but particularly the Joker in the DC traditional canon. And it was huge. And it brought the Joker back to being a real villain. Even if Kevin Smith goes on to write, subtext homosexual tension between the two of them, which is a great series. Don't get me wrong.
Don't forget Lego Batman as well. Don't forget Lego Batman as well.
That's true too. They picked up on that for sure. Yes. But even that just adds, complexity to his character. He's been portrayed in, TV and movies by all kinds of people, good or ill, different interpretations, and drawn differently. Killing Joke, terrifying. Absolutely terrifying, and kind of sympathetic.
I did want to add to, on the subject of Death in the Family, Under the Red Hood, actually, John DiMaggio's performance and his
in the cartoon, the movie Under the Red Hood.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's why I was but his reenactment of that scene still gives me chills, and he's just like, you misspelled ouch.
I think my favorite Joker arc would be the one shot written by Brian Azzarello. The art's fantastic. It's about the story's mainly about one of his criminals that work under him, and seeing the Joker working for him, and seeing the Joker through his eyes, and how really messed up he is, and how it's almost like this breaking the reality of this cool villain to oh wow, this guy's a freaking maniac. I thought that's one of my favorite ones. It's a pretty dark one. It's definitely not for kids, that one shot.
There is an awful lot of the latter Joker stuff that is not even remotely for kids.
I will recommend Emperor Joker for the Joker aficionado of culture like myself. And one more thing I want to say, how come he's never been given a Green Lantern ring? Because if you look at his stats, one of his abilities is an indomitable will. And what are Green Lantern rings powered by?
This is true.
There is an Elseworld where Batman became Green Lantern and Joker became pretty much like Sinestro, which is pretty interesting. I think I have it here somewhere.
When you think about it, those would both be good choices because they both have pretty much indomitable wills.
Yes.
All right, Byron, before we get to number ones, your honorable mention.
Yes. Going back to my cinematic adaptations that were wasted, I'm going with Malachith the Accursed. Now, this is a character that I'm more or less familiar with from the
Simonson's run. Simonson's run.
Not even from the animated film collection of Thor film, of Thor's backstory, and how he managed to make me feel so much pity for him, but and just be outraged by his betrayal in that short span of time, because he was just like he had lost everything to the frost giants, and then when he saw Odin making peace with them, he bit his tongue until the perfect moment arrives, and he takes the flaming sword. He goes to Odin and he's like, "You befriended the people that took everything from me, and you expect me to serve you. How dare you?" And he almost got his revenge, and it was just like that moment made me fall in love with the character. And then Dark World happened. Why would you again? Perfect actor in Christopher Eccleston. I couldn't have imagined a better actor to play that character. Yeah. And then you just make him you make him a Power Rangers monster essentially.
Yeah,
I agree. For me, the Walter Simonson's run and use of that character is way better than the movie version.
Yep. Any version of him is way better than the movie version, and that's not a knock on Eccleston. He does a great job with what he's given. Yes. He's just given a character that is not allowed to have any motivation
or emotion.
Well, yeah. I mean, he should play it with more rage, true, but it just the exposition about what happened to him is literally an exposition dump, and so it's like, let's get away from all of that stuff where you start feeling anything from characters so we can get to plot, and it's not how you make movies.
Nope.
All right, Manny. Honorable mention.
My honorable mention is Baron Zemo. I do enjoy the MCU version of the character. Falcon and the Winter Soldier series was great. It even made me like the actor and the character more.
Great dancer too.
But for me, the reason why
yes.
But the reason why I made my honorable mention is really because of two things. One, Thunderbolts. The fact he was part of the reveal and all that, the first few issues, dealing with that, I thought that was fantastic. But Under Siege, that story arc in the Avengers, written by Roger Stern, is such a fantastic story arc. It's a simple one too. It pretty much, Baron Zemo had a plan, and one of the things he was thinking of, like, okay, I have the Masters of Evil here. I've noticed that we always have 6 Masters of Evil versus 6 Avengers. What if I just kind of double or triple the amount of members I have in the Masters of Evil and have attack the Avengers when they're down? And he does, and they beat the crap out of Thor. They put him in a coma for 2 years, I think. And the story of Avengers Mansion. I think I started reading the Avengers for the first time was through that story arc, and that was a great introduction to the character and to the Avengers. I think they got beaten so bad they had to make a new Avengers group out of the wreckage of all that. So that to me is why Baron Zemo gets my honorable mention. It's a good series. If you could pick it up as a trade, do so. It's good.
Yep. Yeah. Very good character. You gotta love anybody who is that insanely tactically brilliant and is that good a swordsman. So going back to the old stuff, the old weapons.
Also, I love his incarnation in Earth's Mightiest Heroes as well.
Yes.
Yeah, they do, because I think they do a pretty good job of bringing his personality and his, basically the real sense of Zemo from the comics. They don't change an awful lot. So yeah, I agree. All right, so my honorable mention is a weird one. And it's Mojo from the X-Men. I think Mojo is one of those characters who, in the right hands, in the original Ann Nocenti writing and Art Adams artwork, is at the same time terrifying and almost hilariously darkly sarcastic.
Yes, absolutely.
The idea that you've got this this alien or other dimensional being who is both technologically advanced or uses advanced technology, and powerfully magical, who uses all of that to run an entire world of essentially slaves that fight for the entertainment of everybody else on the world, all of which are addicted, all of those people are addicted to watching these fights on TV or whatever the entertainment devices
There's a
are.
metaphor somewhere.
And it powers his brain, his powers. It feeds him. Some of the storylines they've done are absolutely idiotically stupid. The X babies, they've taken the character because he's this, he's this spineless, blob that sits in a chair that could either float or walk around on spidery legs, and has various, appendages that come off of it. He can look very ridiculous. He can also be as terrifying as Baron Harkonnen in Dune. And when done right, he is that scary.
Jim Lee took his visage to a whole other level.
Well, that's the Jim Lee version right there.
Yes.
Yeah.
Art kind of reminded me of the clown from Spawn.
Yeah, Vindicator.
Yes.
Yeah, I agree. Oh no, Vindicator was the big lizard thing.
You think no, Violator.
Violator was the clown. Yes. That makes sense too. The way his eyes are propped open permanently, Art Adams does a better job, I think, of that than Jim Lee. Although Jim Lee's is very frightening. Stolen directly from Malcolm McDowell, in Clockwork Orange. And I think he can be a very, very terrifying villain when handled properly.
Mojo was very overpowered.
Yeah.
I think my favorite story arc involving Mojo, in the other world, if I remember the plane of existence.
Mojoverse. They just called it the
Mojoverse, yes.
Yeah.
Would be how Excalibur was formed. Because it's funny. I like Jim Lee's version, but Alan Davis' version of Mojo is one of my favorites too.
Yep. Good
also,
call.
This would be a perfect chance to cast Patton Oswalt.
Gotta redeem MODOK, man.
Exactly. But you need his likeness, and you need to get some really good CG going on for him.
Yep. Yeah, I like that.
Don't mess this up, Marvel.
That's a good call. All right, that's it for the honorable mentions. We're into the big guns now, folks. Byron, numero uno for you.
Ah, yes, my numero uno. Now, for this one, I could have chosen his alter ego, but let's be honest, this man in and of himself is evil, pure evil incarnate. I'm talking about my main man, Norman Osborn.
Yep.
I feel like as a psychology major, he is very much a textbook psychopath. He's at a point now where he just does bad things because he wants to. He's Spider-Man's greatest enemy, and he's gone out of his way over and over again to take things that he loves. His lovers, his best friends. He's even used his own grandkids to try to wage war against Spider-Man and his family. And he just doesn't give a fuck about it. He's just like, I hate you. I hate your friends. I hate this city that you love. And I'm even going to use one of your greatest enemies to make myself stronger, as he's holding the Carnage symbiote. And using his scientific know-how, made it stronger to nerf its weaknesses. And become the Red Goblin, which is, to this day, one of my favorite modern Spider-Man storylines. It almost makes up for One More Day. That's how good it was. Almost.
I don't know if anything makes up for that.
No, nothing will ever.
And he's right up there on many of your choices as Father of the Year.
Yes. Oh, yes. Oh, yes. Because, pure evil is a time honored family tradition in the Osborn household. I love how they play it off in the animated series from the '90s, because Harry doesn't necessarily do it willingly. He doesn't know what to do with himself, and he's just like, I want my daddy back, so I'm going to become him.
That's kind of the take from the comics. To be fair, Harry was definitely a reluctant adopter of the costume.
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah.
I also just love one of my favorite moments from him was it was several chapters before he killed Gwen Stacy, where he's being carted away and he just looks at Peter Parker and he's like, I know everything and I'm gonna tell the whole world, but not. And there's a panel, not just yet. And it was in that moment that I realized that the Green Goblin or Norman Osborn was nothing to fuck with. And I could go on forever. Dark Reign, I like even Ultimate the Ultimate Green Goblin had its charm to an extent, but I just hated his introduction where he was basically a knockoff of the Hulk.
Yeah, I honestly, even though I grew up with the original Norman Osborn and so on, I still think the Dark Avengers, Dark Reign, Iron Patriot Norman is top tier evil for me.
Oh yes, that was definitely a new level of evil, because at that point he had basically gotten his revenge, and he was just like, that was like his way of saying nah to Spider-Man.
Yep. Yeah.
And also Matt Carkin as his Venom. That was cute.
Yeah, good, excellent choice. Excellent choice going with Norman. Manny, number two.
Number two?
I mean, number one.
Number one is Maestro, the future version of the Hulk, a darker future version of the Hulk.
Good one.
Of Peter David's run, and Peter David's run of the Hulk is amazing. You should definitely check that out if you haven't read it before. But his that short story arc introducing the Maestro, to me, always stands out. It's for those that don't know, the Hulk, I forgot how, but Hulk somehow is pushed into the future, and he finds out that his future version of himself ends up taking over the world and destroyed all the, I guess, anyone with powers, heroes and villains. Takes over the whole world, and it's pretty much and just it's just a villain, the only villain left, really. And it comes across this scenario like, okay, how can you beat a future version of yourself that knows everything you're going to do and is just as incredibly smart and powerful? What do you do? And I think that's a really fun chess match. And I thought Peter David did a great job in putting that story together. And you could tell that Marvel, well, fans actually, I should say, fans really love the character because it does keep popping up by different writers and different Hulk series from time to time. No pun intended.
Good choice. I agree 100% on this. He is probably he's probably the most powerful possible enemy that anybody in the MCU can face, because he was an Avenger. He was a good guy. His strength has literally no upper limit. As long as he lets himself get angrier and angrier, he gets stronger and stronger. And if he has Banner's brain, which Maestro does,
yes,
and Hulk did at that time.
Oh yeah, this was around the time of the Professor Hulk, right?
Yeah, one of them. Around the time of Superior Spider-Man, they brought back the concept of Professor Hulk again with Banner.
Doc Green.
One of my favorite times in Marvel where they finally woke up and went, hey, guess what? Smart people do smart things, not stupid things. But anyway, prior to that, yeah, I agree 100%. Maestro is he's one of those characters where even though they bring him back often, you kind of wonder how, because he's just so OP that, how are you going to stop him if you put him into a storyline?
I was secretly hoping they would have brought him back for World War Hulk, because that would have been one hell of a matchup. I figure someone in the Illuminati would have been like, we need to outfox the Fox, so, and that, but I don't write for Marvel, but I'm giving you gold, guys. I'm giving you gold.
Yeah, excellent choice. So my number one is, honestly, I don't know how it could be anything other than this. It's Doctor Doom. And I chose, after actually seeing manuscripts, I chose one of the pictures of Doom is one of his confrontations with Maestro. With, what are they also? Emperor Hulk, I think was his other title. But yeah, so that's the picture that's up there, folks. But, come on. Victor Von Doom is potentially the smartest person on the planet in the multiverse.
Yes.
I guess Reed Richards might be a strong contender. And the fact that there's a multiversal version of Richards who is one of the worst villains, in the entire Marvel canon, says, something about how powerful both of their brains are. He's also the most powerful magic user, or one of the most powerful magic users in the Marvel canon outside of Wanda and Doctor Strange.
He was Sorcerer Supreme himself at one point.
He could have been. I don't think he ever actually adopted the title. Strange, when he gave up the Sorcerer Supreme title, told Doom that he was strong enough that he could be. But I don't think he ever picked up the title. Probably because it didn't fit with what he wanted to. And, you want to talk about indomitable will. I love the idea. There's a storyline in which Doom has Kilgore, the Purple Man, in a prison in Latveria.
Kilgrave.
Kilgrave, sorry. And just walks into the cell and says, "Take over my mind if you can." And he can't. Doom's will is so strong that even Kilgrave cannot take over and control him.
I have one non-canon instance of Doom's badassery from Death Battle. They pitted him against Darth Vader, and he mopped the floor with him.
The guy has a time machine.
Yes.
Vader could cut down 1 million Doombots before he got to Doom. Because Doom has literal identical versions of him because he's in an armor suit. So how can you tell?
His armor alone protects him from the Force.
His armor protects him from everything. I mean, it's a space suit. It's a time travel suit. He is, right up there with the absolute OP, way too powerful. And even then, he's not powerful enough to do what he did in Secret Wars. So he winds up tricking Molecule Man, who is literally the most powerful thing in the universe, and the Beyonder, which is a power outside the multiverse, to essentially turn him into a god. So, Doom.
I remember that.
And he is an anti-hero. He's been a member of the Fantastic Four.
Yep.
Yes, he has.
He saves people's lives. He thanks heroes when they save his life, even though he knows he's going to go and try to kill them like the next second.
He saved Valeria, I believe her name is.
Valeria Richards, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
He saved her. That's why they named. That's how she got her name. She was named after his mother.
Yep. And after all of this, going all the way back to his actual original beginning, he's Romani. He's Roma. So,
He built himself from nothing.
And he built himself. Well, from nothing. I mean, he was wandering Roma. What used to be called the no longer appropriate term gypsies. His mother was a sorceress. His father was a healer. He learned his basics of magic from them. He was a genius. Wound up going to Empire State University, meeting, Reed Richards, starting all that kerfuffle. Blew up an experiment in which he was trying to contact his dead mother, and that's what destroyed his face. And he's
That's
just
an interesting story too.
Oh, so many interesting stories with Doom.
I mean, about his face. Like, I've always found it interesting how white writers take different liberties with it. Like, sometimes it's just a scratch.
Right.
Other times it's full mutilation.
Kirby and Lee implied very strongly that it wasn't that bad, and it was mostly in his head. When Byrne took over, he made him terribly disfigured, and it's bounced back and forth. Currently he's actually younger now too.
And can we all agree that Ultimate Doom never happened?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that's not a worthwhile version.
My favorite story of Doom, and I can't. I'm actually looking behind me to see if I can find a graphic novel, but it's a story of him teaming up with Doctor Strange, and it's written by Roger Stern, and it's drawn by the creator of Hellboy,
Mike Mignola.
Yes, and it's fantastic.
I almost picked a Mignola Doom drawing for this.
And it's a fantastic. It's only I think it's a one-shot graphic novel, and it's just a beautiful story about Doctor Strange and Doctor Doom teaming up so that they could save Doctor Doom's mother from hell against Mephisto. And it's just the story is just so good, and how they were to win when it seems like they lost, and it's just great storytelling.
Yeah. So many good Doom stories.
That's why he's my favorite Marvel character.
There you go. I'll buy that. All right, folks, that's it. That is our top 3 plus 1 comic book villains. Didn't have an awful lot of interaction in the chat tonight, so in the comments, let us know what you thought about these. Who's yours? Did you agree with any of our choices? Why or why not? And so on. We will be back with you tomorrow night for Nerd Week Live. Already got a bunch of good stories, interesting stories going up there, including one of the funniest teasers for season 3 I've seen in a long time. What We Do in the Shadows. It's just a short teaser, but it's hilarious. And Thursday is, of course, Full Fat Spoiler Chat. Loki. Be there if, again, you don't mind spoilers or you've seen the show. Next Monday will be Anime Octane. We don't have the topic yet, I don't think. But there's plenty out there to choose from. So we'll be discussing it.
I have a suggestion for that, which I'll explain later.
Okay, cool. All right, and folks, just before we head out, let's give out the shout for our Patreon. Patreon.com/nerdcaliber, up on your screen right now. Go there and check it out. Support us if you want to. We'd really love to have your help. Going back to cons, now that cons are coming back, 2 tiers, both low dollar. Love to have you help us out. Byron, give us a good night.
Hey guys, Byron McNeil, aka Byron D0. Check out my YouTube channel. Same name, Byron D0. That's BYRONDZERO.
Awesome. And I'm transitioning slowly so that you can swallow that water. Manny, give us a goodbye.
Take care, everyone. This is Manny from Nerd Caliber. Thank you for checking us out.
Awesome. Very cool. Thank you, folks. And we'll see you in one of the other shows coming up this week.